Well, now that we've gotten NSX application platform deployed, we've talked through malware prevention, let's go through and think about lab number 15, where we're going to configure malware prevention, at least in a simulation. And this is going to be in a simulation, just like application platform was, because we're dependent on NSX application platform for malware prevention. So let's go ahead and pull up the simulation here. As we go through, we're going to install malware prevention and validate it and register the service and deploy the instances and set everything up and get it ready to go. So let's kick off the simulation. Wait for this to load up here real quick. And we'll start stepping through. Well, if this would only load up. There it goes. Only took an extra second or two there. So we're going to configure malware prevention. So the first thing we want to do is go in and open Chrome and log into NSX. All right, so we'll click in the username and password field and then click log in. And then we're going to go in and start to look at application platform. So let's come over to System and down to Application Platform. And there we see our application platform status, right? Our ingress and our messaging URL. We've got a stable platform. That's really what we want to look for here, is that just we have a stable platform, and the system load is not, what would be, over the top. It wouldn't be too crazy. Here we're pretty idle with a system load of 1.42 and 22 gigabytes out of 89 gigabytes total memory allocated. We're doing all right here. So let's go ahead and click the scroll bar to scroll down to the features tiles. And we see there's metrics, and we have NSX intelligence and NSX network detection and response. We'll talk about those a little later. Here we want to activate malware prevention. So we'll go ahead and click the big activate button. What we're going to choose here in the cloud region is where the advanced threat prevention cloud is being accessed. Is it going to be accessed in the United States region or in the European Union region? And here we're going to select United States. Right? We have our note here. The same cloud region is used in both malware protection as well as network detection and response. So we're making a choice that impacts two application platform capabilities. So we're making that choice. We're doing okay. We're going to click the scroll bar and scroll down a little bit. We want to go ahead and run the pre-checks. So we're going to check licensing and all that kind of stuff. Is it what we expect? And our pre-checks came back hopefully good, and we know they did because the activate button here lit up blue. So we click activate and we wait for the malware prevention tools to be deployed. Right, these are all the microservices and pods and things that we have to deploy specific to malware prevention. And that's great. So now we're going to make sure it's all there and it's all good. So that means we need to open up MT PuTTY and open up our Kubernetes control plane node again, SAK8S control 01. We'll go ahead and come in here. And once we are logged in, we'll go ahead and press a key to type in the kube control get pods command. Here we're doing a grep, right? An egrep. And notice we're looking for four distinct strings, right? Cloud connector, malware prevention, SA, and reputation services. All right, so the cloud connector gets us out to our advanced threat analyzer cloud. Malware prevention is the malware prevention tooling. SA is the security analyzer, and then finally reputation service. That's going to be the tool that reaches out to the threat intelligence cloud to go ahead and pull down file reputations. So we'll go ahead and press enter. And here we see we've got some malware prevention pods and a reputation service pod and a couple of SA pods. So we've got a lot of the stuff we're looking for. So that's good stuff. Now we've got malware prevention deployed. We need to go ahead and register this with NSX Manager now. And to do that, we have to use the NSX API. So we'll go ahead and launch an API client here called Postman. Right? It's just a freely available and fairly popular RESTful API client. Now here we want to get some things set up. We're going to do just some one-off stuff. So we want to come over here and click on the authorization tab. We need to set up our authentication against NSX Manager. And so under the type column, we'll drop that down and we'll come down and find basic authorization. Right? This is where we go to just send a username and password with our API call. So let's go ahead and click in the username and password field. This is going to be my NSX Manager username and NSX Manager password. And that sets that up. Now we don't have to save anything here. We'll work with this until we come over and plug in the URL and hit send. So now we need to go over to headers. And what we're going to do here is we're going to set up some headers. We're going to set up a content type header that's application JSON. We need that for the NSX API, and then we need to come down, or not down, but over to the body tab. Right. So the content type just tells us that we're sending a JSON payload, and we need to come in and define that payload. So let's come in and set up our raw body, and we'll click in here, and in something outside of a simulation, we would naturally have to type all this stuff in. Where is my service virtual machine? So we'll have to put that service virtual machine on a web server somewhere. Notice we're doing an HTTP GET to 172.20.10.11 in the files directory, the SVM OVF files. And then there's our NSX SVM appliance, right? That is my malware prevention service virtual machine. Our deployment spec name, we're going to call this MPS malware prevention service -SVM service virtual machine, and it's version 4.0.1.1. That's all we need to do. That's all we need to do. Now, we're not going to do a get here. We're not trying to get anything here. We're trying to post. We're trying to send this data to NSX Manager, and we need to send that. But first, we need to send that. We need to populate the NSX Manager API, right? So there's our NSX Manager fqdn/nap/API v1 malware prevention SVM spec. That's the API URI that we need to post this particular payload to. So we'll go ahead and send this, and it comes back with a status 200. That's what we want to see, right? This status 200, that's okay. That tells us that this has been published. And here we see, right, in the output, in the response, hey, no, we now have a service ID. It's going to be a display name. We know this is the VMware NSX Distributed Malware Prevention Service. And then there is the deployment URL that we set up in the body. So where are we going to go from here? Here we're going to go back to NSX. So we need to open Chrome back up, and under our system tab, right, under the configuration, a couple of slots down from NSX application platform, we're going to go ahead and select our service deployments. We want to come over to the catalog. The catalog will show us solutions that have been registered with NSX. In this case, the only thing we have is the VMware NSX Distributed Malware Prevention Service. We just saw that response come back from the API. So now we need to deploy. We're going to deploy by coming over to the deployment tab, and in the partner service, we see we've only got the one partner service here. It's already selected, but we're going to click it and just be sure about that anyway, and we want to go ahead and deploy this service. Now, we need to give it some kind of a name. Here we're just calling it EWMPS, East-West Malware Prevention Service. We're going to run this against savcsa01.vclass.local, right? That's our vCenter server, the compute manager that we're using. We can click the cluster dropdown and see what cluster we need to put this in, right? So here we're just going to select the compute cluster. This is what cluster we're going to prepare, right? Where are we going to put these service virtual machines, and what cluster will be ready for malware prevention, right? Our data store, right? We're just going to do sa shared 01-nsx, and then we need to start thinking about other things like an SSH RSA key, right? And we want that because we're going to go ahead here in a minute and configure the attributes for this deployment template and inject that SSH key so that we can go ahead and SSH into that service virtual machine for validation and troubleshooting. So we're going to use the PuttyGen tool for that. So we've got, these are all sorted alphabetically. There's PuttyGen. So we'll go ahead and click on that. And we want to just generate a public-private key pair. All right, we'll go ahead and save this public key. And we'll call it SVM public key, right? In your environment, you'll probably name it something a little bit more descriptive, but I don't know how much more. This is being saved in the desktop or on the desktop, so we know where to find it here in a minute. So we'll go ahead and save that. We also want to save the private key, so let's go ahead and save that. And yeah, in this case, we're going to save it without a passphrase. That's okay. And we'll go ahead and click our file name, right? Also in the desktop, SVM private key, right? We want to make sure that we differentiate between the public and private keys in the name. We'll go ahead and save that. Then we're going to select the public key. We want to select all. We want to select all of this text because, we're not going to configure the public key file. We need the public key string for the actual service virtual machine. So we'll go ahead and copy that. Right? It's just a right click on a copy. And then let's go back to Chrome. Right? So we'll leave keygen kind of there back in the background. We're going to configure our attributes. And there's the appliance public key. We'll simply paste that public key information in and go ahead and save that. All right. So, were this a live environment, you could have scrolled back through that and ensured that the entire thing that you copied was actually pasted in there. Here we trust that it was. And then we want to go ahead and set the network configuration. Now, the Service Virtual Machine has a pair of virtual NICs, ETH0 and ETH1. Now, ETH1 is labeled here as the control NIC. And what that's doing is that's going to connect us to the context multiplexer. So that's all configured by the system. But here we want to create an IP pool, an IP address pool, to go ahead and use for my service virtual machine. So we're going to go ahead and add a range of IP addresses, and we'll go ahead and use .46 to .49. We don't need too many of these, and unlike, if you remember back when we set up the IP address pool for our tunnel endpoints, we did not set any DNS information. Well, here we are, because my service virtual machine is going to need to be able to make DNS lookups, and it's going to be in a DNS domain. So we'll go ahead and add that information in and apply that. Now we have our service virtual machine IP pool. We'll save this and save again. And in our network type, in our network, we need to go ahead and connect that to our management network. I'm getting ahead of myself. We need to connect that to our management network, and then we can change to our static IP pool, and we can select the SVM IP pool that we just defined. And so we'll go ahead and save this configuration. So now we've got this set up so that we're going to deploy service virtual machines to all of the ESXi hosts in the compute cluster. They're going to be attached to the management network, or at least ETH0 is going to be attached to our management network. The IP addresses will be assigned from the SVM IP pool. The virtual machines will be stored on the SA Shared 01 NSX data store, right? So let's go ahead and save this and wait for just a second while we deploy the service, right? And so, we'll get our in progress here, and now we're up, right? Thanks to the magic of a simulation, we didn't have to wait all the time for those virtual machines to deploy. Now let's go validate that these are all here. So we're going to go into the vSphere tab that just says login right here. And we're going to go ahead and click in our credentials and go ahead and log in. And we're going to expand out the ESX agents resource pool. So just click there. And here we see I've got two hosts, ESXi 1 and 2. We've got VMware MPS SVM 1 and 2. So I've got two service virtual machines. So if we select one of these, we get to see that we are attached to PGSA management that we defined. and then network adapter 2 ETH1 VM service vShield PG. We come in and click view all 6 IP addresses. What do we see? There's our 172.20.10.47. That's an address inside the IP pool that we deployed. Then we've got our 169.254.1.22. That's to talk to the context multiplexer, and 172.18.0.1 to communicate with the rapid service. Right? So, now we see that our service virtual machines are all there, and everything seems pretty great. We can do the same thing on MPS SVM2, and there's 172.20.10.46 where our IP pool started, and then the other two are exactly the same as they were. So we've got our service virtual machines successfully deployed. They are configured right. They have appropriate IP addresses. They're ready to go. So let's start thinking about using them. And to do that, we go back here to NSX, and then we'll come back to the security tab and down to IDS, IPS, and malware prevention. All right. Now we'll go ahead and skip the setup here. This already would have been done in our live lab environment, but this is a different environment where this was all recorded. So we'll skip the setup and go ahead and go through again the manual way. So we'll check our profiles and go to our malware prevention profile. We don't have to turn this on in the same way we did the intrusion detection and prevention because the service virtual machine's already deployed. We've already got it set up. So we'll add a malware prevention profile. We'll go ahead and create a profile. And here we're just going to leave it at the default. We're going to look at all of the different file types, and we'll send unknown files to the advanced threat analysis cloud. Now that we've got our profile, we can go use that profile in rules. So we've got to build a policy. We'll go ahead and create our east-west malware prevention policy, and we want to add a rule. We'll go ahead and give this rule a name. No change in sources or destinations or service. We're going to do any. We're going to come over to our malware prevention profiles in our security profile selection. And here we're going to select our east-west malware prevention profile. And we apply. And that's the difference between really our intrusion detection and our malware prevention profiles. Now, we are going to limit the application of this. We're not going to leave this on everything. We just want virtual machines protected that are in this guest VMs group. But here, notice we're only going to detect malware. We're not going to prevent. So we'll publish that, and then we'll come back into vSphere. Because now we're going to start testing this, right? We're going to open up the Windows 10 console. So we've got a virtual machine here. We'll go ahead and open up Chrome on the task manager of the Windows VM, right? Not the task manager of our desktop, but of the Windows 10 VM. And we're going to click the file server bookmark. And here we've got all kinds of malware files, right? These are probably not things I should download, but I'm going to download malware file 1. And then we're going to click down a little bit. Let's grab Process Hacker 2.3.9 and the NSX4 Security Quick Start Guide. Right, let's go ahead and download that instead of just opening it. So we'll go ahead and download that. So we've downloaded three different files. Right. So now we're going to come back out to the student desktop, what's called the local desktop in the guide here. So we'll find that. What am I looking for? Oh, the tab. Let me look at the tab, not the taskbar. Oh, you would think that this would be easy. So we've got, we're back in Windows 10. Let's go to Ubuntu 1A. We're going to a different virtual machine. We're going to launch another console here. And here we're going to type in and wget malware file 2 from that file server. Right? We see the file was downloaded, right? Malware file 2.exe was saved. And we're doing this because malware prevention works on both Windows and Linux platforms, right? We're not too picky about that. So let's go back to the NSX browser tab, and then we'll come in and under our threat event monitoring, we'll click on malware prevention, right? And here we see, that we've got a couple of events that we're looking at. We've got a suspicious file here. We've got a malicious file there, process hacker. So we've got a couple of things. Now we want to go ahead and expand out our suspicious file. And, we see that was downloaded. That was that malware file 2 that we just downloaded to our Ubuntu 1A virtual machine. Now let's scroll down a little bit. And we can see, all kinds of file type information and what transport node detected this, what analyst UUID grabbed this. We've got file information, right? And, so we can look at number of total inspections. We've only seen malware file 2.exe once, right? We grabbed malware file 1.exe from the Windows VM. So here we just have the one inspection for malware file 2. It's a suspicious file. We don't know enough about it right now to say that it was indeed malicious. So we'll go ahead and close that. Now we can go ahead and click here and scroll down and see some of these other files. Let's look at this malicious process hacker file. As we look at this, the Win10 client was the last one that grabbed it. Let's scroll down just a little bit. So, here we've got, all kinds of information. One total inspection. It was first and last inspected at this timestamp. It was not blocked at this point, right? Because remember, our profile said that it was that we were just going to detect, or not our profile, but our rule. So there's that. And I'm waiting for a little bit of background noise. I'll have to put some markers in to cut that out. And so we've got our inspections here with no blocks for this malicious file, right? So we can scroll down and we can look at our other suspicious file. And here, right, there's our malware file 1. It was inspected once. It was not blocked. And we can see a lot of the same kind of information here. So let's go ahead and close that. Now, if we come up and look at all files, we do see that we've got some benign files that have shown up in here, the things that we've downloaded that are not suspicious or malicious. Now, here we're going to do a filter, and we're going to do a file type filter, and let's look at PDF, right? So PDF doc file. So we'll click in the search and filter that down, and there's the NSX quick start that we downloaded, and we can see that is a benign file. It was downloaded once on ESXi 01, so our Win10 virtual machines on SA ESXi 01, and so we've got some good information there. So we can see all kinds of information about the individual files that we're downloading or that are being downloaded, whether they were flagged as suspicious or malicious, or even if they're benign. We'll show you all of the different files that you might have in question. So that's malware prevention. Thanks for hanging around for this simulation. Let's come back and talk about after we talk about intelligence and NDR and get into the last simulation of this series. See you soon.